And we are, in fact, live. Good
Yay!
evening to every one of you who may be watching, who are live streaming, who are with us on this wonderful panel. Thank you and welcome to A Conversation, the series. This is actually the second installment. The first was about hope, and it was amazing. I will post the link later. And I am joined by a wonderfully diverse group of educators. This evening, we're going to talk about the challenges and triumphs during a pandemic. We have a new normal, children have a new normal, parents and educators have a new normal. And we're going to try to touch on what things were challenging as we went along and what the triumphs were so that we can acknowledge what went well because there are things that are going well. And sometimes when we get bogged down in such a heavy thing, there's been so much going on in this last year, almost year and a half. Can you believe that much time has gone by? That we lose sight of what's gone well. We lose sight of the beauty that's come out of it. So we want to make sure that we talk about that this evening, and hopefully someone somewhere will feel encouraged or inspired, maybe believe a little more that we will get past this. There's hope. There's always hope. And maybe you feel supported, not so alone, that it's not just you feeling this frustration or what have you. So we will jump in this evening I'm going to ask a general question. And then if you guys can just kind of individually just let me know, how are you? How are you doing? How's your family? Sharita, how are you? How's your family?
Well, we're doing well considering the circumstances. I have 5 children. So this topic is near and dear to my heart because each one of them has been affected differently. We missed graduations and proms and everything. So I'm looking forward to this evening, not only as being a presenter, but also as receiving information from all of the wonderful folks on the panel.
Yeah. How are you doing, Phil?
I'm good. It's been interesting. I am what some people refer to as an extrovert. So this has been, especially those first few months when we just didn't know anything and everybody was like spread apart and you had to really watch. That was tough. That was really tough. I also 2 of my kids. I have 3 children. Like you, Shrita. One of them lost college graduation. Was lucky enough to spend it with his mom and dad. Yeehaw. That's exactly what I'm sure he had been working for 4 years. Um, and the other 2 are teachers. And so it was a little bit terrifying. One of them's in California, one of them's down in Richmond, Virginia, and they're very different approaches their schools had. We'll get into all that. But overall, we're kind of adjusting. There's some hope, and they're like, the theme here, that there's some hope. We've learned a lot about ourselves and about others. And I don't know. I'm gonna be pretty positive today. I'm gonna be pretty positive today. So
All right. I love it. Juanisha, how are you?
I'm doing okay. It was a big adjustment. Like Phil said in the beginning, when it started in the beginning, it was crazy. I myself had tons of anxiety, not really knowing how work was going to go, what's going to happen with my child at home for school, and even the first 3 months trying to adjust to it was crazy. I was overwhelmed with work, overwhelmed with trying to make sure that my 8-year-old kept up with the things that he needed, education wise, and just even just being stuck in the house,
Yeah.
it was crazy, but I think we've adjusted pretty well. Um, just rolling with the punches and hopefully going back to a new normal. I mean, going back to normal soon, and this can be done. Um, Looking forward to it, but also afraid, So I think for the most part we're okay.
Awesome. Andrea, how are you?
A lot of what everybody else said. The thing that Phil said about being an extrovert, I thought I was an extrovert, but I found out that I'm more of an introvert. So it really helped me in that vein because not that I didn't miss people, because you still miss people, but I was fine like being to myself. But the thing that I got a chance to do, which was very heartwarming, I don't have any kids of my own. Some of the children in my classroom become my children. I've taught everything from preschool to college level and everywhere in between. But during the pandemic, the initial quarantine, I got a chance to support a set of twins that were 6 years old. And so we got to go through and maneuver the virtual learning, which we didn't know what we was doing. I tried to do it anyway. So that part was fun, but just the challenges of not knowing, just the fear of the unknown, I think is where I kind of failed, just kind of that fear, but navigating it because that's what all of us had to do. We was kind of thrown into the deep end of the pool and said, swim. And we didn't know how to do.
Yeah.
So that was me.
Awesome. Lori, my lovely, how are you?
I'm doing well, doing really well. I think, like Andrea just said, I think I miss people. I miss getting to go and do stuff, but I'm also fairly content to be at home. And you know, I enjoy my work. It's been challenging in new ways. I've been doing this stuff a long time, and this last year has been different in many, many ways that are challenging, but that are pushing me to grow. And I learn from the people I teach. I learn from my therapy clients. So that's very full and rich. And some days I am just tired.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I am neither in academia nor am I a student currently, but this has been a challenge for me. I work from home, my business is from home. And the interesting thing for me is nobody thought anything changed for me. They're like, well, you're already home anyway. What's the big deal? I feel like a punished kid. I can't go outside. I can't go and be with my family who are in another state. I can't go around the corner. I have an autoimmune disease. So every time I leave the house, I take my life in my hands. Every time someone comes to my door, I take my life in my hands. And it's honestly not something I was cognizant of before. I hadn't thought about my danger zone. I hadn't thought about it. And, you know, it can be a slippery rabbit hole kind of thing. Once you start thinking about something like that, you become afraid of everything. You're like, well, did I look that way? Or did I touch? How long was I out of my car? How long was I in that store? It became anxiety on top of anxiety. And it was very interesting to see people respond to the what's the big deal? You're always home. And I'm like, yeah, this is different for everyone. It doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. It's different for each and every one of us. So I thank you all for, again, being here to share your expertise, to share your experiences, to share the benefit of your education. And I really do love each of you individually, no strings. You know, I always say that, but I mean it. And we're actually going to cap our night off with Dr. Phil Cronin. So let me tell you a little bit about Phil. Phil has served Fairfax County Public Schools over 25 years. He started as social studies teacher and has also been a department chair, assessment coach, dean of students, and most recently, assistant principal at Herndon High School in Virginia. Dr. Cronin received his bachelor's degree in history from Mary Washington College, a master's in education from George Mason University, and his doctorate is education from Virginia Tech. Having coached a variety of sports, including football, softball, soccer, Dr. Cronin was inducted into the Virginia chapter of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2018. In addition to coaching, he enjoys spending as much time as possible at the beach with his family. Please welcome Dr. Phil Cronin. Phil, I am so grateful that you are here. My primary reason is just to see your face, friend. It's been a really long time. I won't say how long because that means it'll mess up my lie about my age. So I'm just gonna say it's been a long time. And you and I talked when I called you, you were actually the first person to respond to my request. And I wasn't even sure what I was asking at that point.
That I know.
I just kind of said, what is going on? How in the world are you all managing? And you said, how long do you have? And I was like, wow, we need to start talking about this because this is heavy. How tonight we're talking challenges and triumphs in the education and academic arena. Phil, what if you can just name a few of the immediate challenges that you met with at the beginning of this? This all kind of started in March, didn't it? In March 2020, when there was a recognition that we had a problem. Like it wasn't just something that was going to go away and it was spreading so fast. What hit you first?
So first of all, I want to say that intro, you were supposed to edit that down.
Nope.
Small, like I've been in schools for a long, long time. That's really what we're gonna get to.
Nope. I'm
The
too
rest
proud
it,
of you. Nope.
it's all gravy on those biscuits. Challenges. It was interesting. In education, you know, or at least where I am, I'm for those that are watching from outside or whatever, I teach I'm an assistant principal at a public high school in a fairly affluent county. Fairfax County, Northern Virginia is well known for its academics. It's got a pretty high pupil cost ratio. Generally speaking, our scores and where our kids do are all, you know, we think we're fine, right? We think we're good, and we celebrate. We tend to pat ourselves on the shoulder a lot. So this hit, and March 12th, and that was a Thursday because I was in a meeting, a parent meeting that had gotten kind of contentious, and we had to go and meet with some executive directors, and we were putting a plan in to help this kid get back to school, get back on track. The parents didn't like what we did. It was just a lot, right? A lot going on. And I went back to my office, and my principal and I were the only two in the building. At that point, it was sort of the end of the day, and my principal came by and said, "Are you coming in tomorrow?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm coming in. Of course I'm coming in." And then like she came back around my office a half an hour later, said, "We take everything. We're supposed to evacuate the building." So teachers, because we had one of the things that happened to us is they had said sort of earlier in the week, they had stopped classes. Like we had stopped, we were just coming off of spring break. And so we had stopped classes. And so what happened to us was when they shut school down on the 13th, the Friday morning of the 13th, no one was allowed in the building. Some teachers didn't even have their laptops. So we didn't know what was going to happen. And basically we shut down for almost a month. Like everything just shut while they tried to figure it out. That's a long way to get to the challenges. During that time, the leadership, the school leadership teams, the county leadership teams, the state, and everywhere. I mean, this was happening in Maryland, California, everywhere, trying to figure out what did this mean? What did this, what were the implications on the students? How, you know, were we done for the year? How are we going to continue? How are we going to reach these kids? Like we had never done anything like this Zoom stuff, or, you know, we'd never done anything like this. And it became sort of a trial and error period. And so that was tough. And, you know, without a whole lot of direction from the federal government, or, you know, and no, you know, nobody knew what this was going to be. We thought we'd be coming back. We really did. We thought we'd be back, no problem. And so then hits what I consider the biggest challenge, and still is our biggest challenge today. So the long way to this answer is we discovered how much we do at our school besides teach. And as a county that we thought, you know, we're a rich county and all of our kids go to UVA and Virginia Tech and Harvard. We discovered that a very large portion of our county, they relied on school for food, for breakfast, for lunch. How are we going to feed these kids? We discovered that we had 10 to 12% of our students didn't have the technology. When we started rolling out technology, they didn't have technology. They were using They were doing their technology. This was their technology. This was their internet. So when we switched to wanting to go online and doing things through online platforms, we found out, and some schools more than others. My school is an interesting. It's kind of high. You know, we're all over the place at our school. We've basically, I like to say, we have one of every kid. We have one rich kid. We have one poor kid. We have one black, brown, red, purple, green kid. We have one of everything, and it's great. But we discovered how many of our students weren't going to be able to access learning. How are we going to get that to them? For me, the scariest thing was how, like, where were these kids going to get food? Now that when we shut our doors, how are we going to get them food? And I'll hold that thought to when we come back to the positives, because I got a really good positive for that when we get done. But I'm going to hold on that.
Awesome. Wow. I absolutely cannot imagine being in that position. You okay? I thought something. I got after you there. I'm new to the South, so I'm afraid of insects. So every time somebody does that, I jump. But what you described actually sounds frightening. It sounds frightening, and the discovery of what was lacking or things that you hadn't seen. That's pretty amazing. Um, so let me ask then across the board, Sharita, what happened? What happened right out of the gate for you? Because, like you said, you have 5 kids, you're a college professor, you've co-hosted a radio show, you are an entrepreneur. I mean, I can read your bio, but I know it. Um, let's see, who's Sharita Paulin? Who is Sharita Paulin? My goodness.
I wouldn't even go through all that. I'm just a
I'm
mom
doing
with a
it.
whole lot of kids.
Sharita Paulin has been an educational advocate specializing in home education and adult learning for over 15 years. She is the founder of the Global Institute for Scholars, providing curricula, developmental plans, and strategies for successful home education experiences. As a guardian at Lightem, she is for the child, advocating for exceptional services for children in foster and temporary care. Sharita is also an adjunct instructor with the University of Phoenix, developing androgyny. Yeah, she put a word in here I had to go look up. Don't play with me. Andragogy in institutions of higher learning, and is currently a doctoral candidate in business administration. Yeah, but she just has a couple of things to do. That's all. It's not a lot. Sharita, I find it interesting what was your challenge? Tell me your challenge. What challenged you right out of the gate? What are you still experiencing?
Well, the interesting thing is I have been home educating my children for so long. When this pandemic first started and everybody went to virtual learning, my kids were like, we're born for this. This is our time to shine. As an instructor at the University of Phoenix, I've had people talk about, adult students learning online. And so when the first stuff started happening and they were sending everybody home, my kids were like, call me if you need me because we have this thing down. But then as it started to go and they started realizing, hey, this thing is lasting a little longer than we anticipate, it became a challenge. But the challenge wasn't so much with them, it was the pain that they were seeing in their friends. Which was an interesting experience for me because people made the mistake of equating doing schoolwork at home with home education, and they're not one and the same. Virtual education and home education is not the same because you have flexibilities with being home educated that a lot of the teachers and administrators like Phil and other people were not able to do with their students because they were required to keep them on a certain schedule, keep them on a certain curriculum, and so it posed challenges for them that those children were really not prepared for. Whereas
Wow.
my children were able to kind of think outside the box, and we came up with some creative stuff to adjust and adapt to our new normal.
Wow. That's an interesting perspective. I kind of hadn't thought of that. Raina is probably yelling at me because this is not the format, but I love you and you know me well enough by now. Andrea, your story is very interesting because um, her bio is quite lengthy. And Andrea is one of our military veterans, and she is also a pastor and a minister. She started one of the first online Bible studies some years ago before people were even doing online work. And she works for a Christian school, but they were only closed for 3 months.
Mhm.
How'd you pull that off?
It's actually a preschool, and it's, well, I say mid-size, and just the team working together. We have a phenomenal leadership team, and they kept us abreast of everything that was going on. When everything shut down, it was a Friday. I think Sunday they told us that we would not be going back into work. And I'm like, ooh, I'm off. Like, hey, like, what am I gonna do with all this time, right? Got a ministry going, got my business that, let's do this, right? And then I get a text saying a family needs support. And it's a mom and a dad, and they're essential personnel. And they have 3 children, set of twins, who are 6, and a 3-year-old. And I'm very familiar with the family. And I'm just like, okay. So learning, like the teachers were playing how to do this. The parents was playing how to do this, but nobody knew how to do, right? And so what I saw in that moment is that parents truly needed help.
Mm.
I got to see it from both sides because I saw on the videos, I saw the teachers were struggling because they didn't know what this was going to look like. They didn't know how to do it, but they was throwing stuff together, putting things together to help provide some type of learning for the children.
Yeah.
The parents were frustrated.
Yeah.
The parents that I was in the home with were frustrated because they didn't sign up to be teachers. So you have both sides against the middle, and both sides of the middle was coming against the children.
Mm.
And that got me because it was pulling on my heart because I'm helping the kids with their learning. Mom and dad are essential personnel, and they don't know how to navigate this. And every day they're like, Miss Andrea, we're so thankful that you're here. We don't know how we would do this without you. But I was like, how many other families did not have a Miss Andrea?
Wow.
Right? How many other families were not getting the support? And then the other part of it, children that receive services like speech therapy, right? How are they actually getting the services that they need? Theo mentioned the food, right? And so what I think happened out of the pandemic is it brought a lot of things to light that was in the darkness.
That's
And
a
that
good-
it was a much needed bringing to the light, right? And so that just blessed me. But the leadership team was phenomenal. They was working with us all around the clock. They're like, are you coming back to work? You got a
There
sweet
was
deal
question-
over there.
Was there
Are you coming back to work?
was there a question as to whether your school was going to be able to open or not? Early
No.
on? No, no question ever.
No, we
Wow.
we went back and forth like everybody else. So everybody's watching the news. Everybody's following the leadership. Everybody's following the dictates, the mandates. But at the end of the day, we just had everything that they told us to do. We did.
Yeah.
And so they finally, Governor Wolf in PA, because that's where I am, Southern Pennsylvania. He made the mandate that we would actually open back up. And when we did, there was just, the parents could not come back in the building. There was just certain mandates that they put in place to drop their kids out there, to drop them off outside, and you got the younger ones and they're not happy about it. They weren't happy at the door, but now they got to be outside. And you taking them outside into this building. So that presented a lot of stress in itself. So what I was talking to Chris about last night is I was like, PTSD hit me when we was talking, because I was like, we haven't been in a war zone, but we're experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder because everybody was thrown into the same ball of wax and we're experiencing things differently. But in us experiencing differently, we're also experiencing the same because nobody knew and nobody knows when this is going to end. And so it's more of the fear of the unknown. And in the fear of the unknown, we don't know how it's going to play out. But my heart is for the children that are getting shuffled in this whole thing, and how are they actually dealing with this. So when we talk about the triumphs, I'll talk about that in a way that God has hit me with to help the children.
Okay, Quanisha. So Quanisha works with children that have special needs, profound developmental disabilities, physical disabilities, hearing impaired, visual impaired. She has worked in residential. She is an administrator currently. She's done the work from the what you would call the beginning stages of working with children diagnosed with autism and just different things. And she's worked pretty much throughout every level of working with these kids. And that had to be, when we talked, it impacted me specifically, Quanisha, because you talked about this being residential and the difficulties. And that was an aspect I really had not even considered about children that are in residential programs, and how, just talk about the challenges that you experienced with your, not just your, the children that you're working with, but what you all as educators had to experience and how you had to work your way through that.
Yeah, so it is very different. I mean, when it first hit, of course, as all of you have mentioned, it was at first, how Miss Andrea was saying, oh, we're off for a couple weeks. I thought it was like, oh, all right, the early spring break, cool. But I think that was on the 12th, or that was on a Thursday. And I actually was sick that day and had to go in to urgent care. And then I was told as I was going to work that I couldn't come to work because of the pandemic, because I had symptoms. So that was the first shocker. So then, even for me, my first challenge was getting over myself, because in that moment I was like, oh my gosh, do I have it? Am I gonna die? All of these things. So then the next day, they mentioned that we were shutting down, and I was like, oh snap. First, it was a little bit of excitement for some time off, but as we really began to get our hands in and figure out what we were really going to do, it was a challenge. We have kids visually impaired, um, uh, cerebral palsy, all types of multiple disability, hearing impairments. And then you trying to figure out how to serve these kids at home. And it was hard. We got introduced to a lot of different technologies that we don't usually use, which is Zoom, Google Classroom. Trying to navigate our way through that was a little frustrating for the teachers and the residential staff. And so, to give a little idea how it works in my population, so we have, of course, they go for instruction during the day. And then in the evening, we have a population of students that stay residentially, and they stay from maybe Sunday or Monday till Friday. And so during the residential time, we work on the activities of daily living, all the expanded core curriculum, from orientation and mobility to assistive technology, ADLs, and all of those things. And you're trying to figure out how do we do this at home? How do we do this on a computer? So we began getting all the materials together that we think the students would need to ship on home. We had the classrooms, like the teachers and the paras were running around trying to get packets together so that the kids continue to learn. Um, and we wasn't really sure right off. It didn't, virtual didn't come right in. We didn't know what was happening. And then maybe the next week we got introduced to, okay, we're going to have to do this virtually. And now the challenge is equipment, technology. Half of the families did not have the technology. So now the school has to figure out, okay, how do we get laptops, iPads, braillers, voice output devices? We use them at school, but now we have to take the supplies that we have and send them home. Waiting, trying to order different devices for the students, even down to routers, the internet. Everybody didn't have the internet, so it was very challenging. I We're managing, but the other challenge with that is residentially, our students are there, like I said, from Sunday to Friday. You have a lot of parents who were not maybe familiar with all of the skills and things that we will work on. They knew it based off of the IEP, but to actually do it hands-on, we were pretty much having to teach the parents how to work with their children.
Wow.
So
that's
that was a
another
challenge.
level.
You had some parents who just didn't see it possible. Well, how are you going to teach my visually impaired child or my completely blind kid on a computer? Or my kid is deaf blind. How do I how what are they going to get out of a computer? Um and then you had the parents who really couldn't because of their own work responsibilities, and then in our program, so you looking at our school, we come up with this virtual program and we're literally the students are in class during the day, and then residentially we're asking the parents to then log on in the evenings to do virtual sessions so that they can continue their expanded core curriculum type work, because as they have IEP goals during the day, they have them at night as well. So it was crazy, but I will say that we have managed. um we haven't reached every student because parents just can't, and I could relate to it because I think, I probably wouldn't have been able to have my kid on the lessons during the day. And then you asking me to sit during the evening as well. That's impossible. When am I going to be able to work? When can you really get anything done? So it was a lot of challenges like that. It was crazy, but I think for the most part we have kind of made lemonade out of lemons, doing the best that we can, helping parents to understand that any type of service that they can get will still be helpful, even though it's not what they used to receiving. We're providing something, to try to keep the kids in. The challenges with food, we pretty much revamped everybody's job description. you know um we had supervisors like myself who had to step in for virtual instruction, trying to set up structure, to provide for things that we weren't even really used to doing. Um we had staff who had to shift and become the delivery crew. They were delivering lunches to families who had tons of children at home, not only delivering the food daily, but also delivering equipment, because as you know, using the mail was not really the best way to go. If you send something through the mail, they're bound to get it 3 weeks later, So it was definitely challenging, but I will say that we have kind of met a smooth, we've kind of got leveled a little bit with it, but it's still a lot of kids who are of course affected and have not been able to get the services, that they need. Not even to mention the related services like the OT, PT, speech, you know. A lot of that stuff kind of, we had to figure it out, because and you have some people who go out and service at the homes, but it was like, go to the student's home, you know, it's a pandemic. We don't know, what's going on in their household. We don't know if they're practicing social distancing. It was just so much fear of the unknown, and but we still here.
You know, you are amazing and resilient, and I'm learning things I had not even thought of. And just so let you know, I am not super tech savvy. So I've been getting notes saying we're not on Facebook. We are now, but that's simply because I'm holding my phone here. And
It's
I'm
okay.
hopeful that there's another way for us to do this, but one way or another, we're recording this. So anyone who may be watching, anyone who is interested in seeing it's being recorded, and it will be posted across all social media platforms within 45 minutes after we are off. I don't know, I don't know about y'all. Words just leave me and they don't come back anymore. It's an age thing. But there was a word supposed to be after that. Y'all know what it is. You know where I'm
Yeah.
and you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Raina, I want
First,
to hear your perspective because you're
I
going to
was,
hide up in the corner. You're a parent.
yeah, I was going to ask, could I contribute? Cornisha, I want
Please.
to let you know I appreciate your help. I actually take care of my nephew, who is also a special education student in high school. And so with him starting out, it was fun. And he was like, yay, no school, we're home, blah, 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 because he's the kid who does not like school. And so as time went on, he, in dealing with the teachers, because when the pandemic happened, he was in a regular public school, being treated as a regular public school student. So you have a special needs education student and regular public school population. So he was already a sore thumb in a bad situation starting out. So we were practically homeschooling him at home just so he can get the education he needs, because school was just a place to babysit, because by law he had to be there. That's how we saw school initially. And so as time went on, we were like, oh, we can do this. We've been schooling ever since. But then he eventually we had IEP meeting, virtual IEP meeting, and he got transferred to the school fit for him. And I have to say that those group of people, those teachers, the principals, it was like there was no such thing as that is not my job. I've had his teacher has come by and drop off school supplies. She will call, we will not Facebook, FaceTime, text, Zoom conference meetings. And so for me, my experience was kind of different from other parents because we were already homeschooling and he really wasn't learning in a regular school setting. And so when he transferred to the school that was best for him, it was like this was the most learning he has ever learned, even though he was going through a difficult time mentally and emotionally. But he found his stride in school. He found his community. He found um, his friends that didn't knock him down, didn't tease, didn't bully, didn't mistreat him. And when he was in a regular public school setting, he had created this bad view of teachers, which created kind of like a defiant behavior. But now he has teachers who are supporting him, who wants the best for him. It's like, for me, even though, and now he wants to go back to the building. That's all I hear every day now. He wants to go back to he's never been to the building, but he wants to go back to the building. But it's like he's learning, but my husband and I, we realize that he is having a hard time. Like he sees social distance as a bad thing. He sees wearing a mask as a bad thing. He sees um, every time he sees a sign that says 6 feet apart, he gets upset. So he has trouble dealing with being safe, and we kind of manage our words by we're safe at home instead of saying we are stuck in the house, or we're being safe. So when we see the social distance commercials, because he can't stand to see somebody on the TV with a mask on, he hates it. And I try to tell him, I'm like, well, they're helping us be safe. You would want to see someone wearing a mask because they're helping us be safe. And I think that's the one thing I would say we're learning in this process is how to word our words, how to, I guess, handle our thinking specifically for him, because we know emotionally he's going through a hard time, and he may be 15, but emotionally he's not. So it's like just managing his mental and emotional health, and in the process of managing ours. So it's like when we, and sometimes he gets anxiety. And so finding ways to help him cope with his anxiety. And when he gets frustrated, because he's also one who does not like to learn, but he's learning very well. And so helping him see his progress and coming up with progress charts and sheets, and just coming up with ways and giving him a break. And we limited screen time because we know the screen time is the enemy. If a kid is on a computer all day long, like 4 or 5 hours, however time they're on, and then they go to that device, that's a lot of screen time, which is also hard on the mental as well. So we learn 3 hours during the week, 4 hours on the weekend. And so that managed his stress level too, because there was less social media time. There was less hearing what everybody else was saying, because what everybody else was saying was also affecting him. So I will say, you all, to me, are heroes, just from a parent perspective, because I will admit this has not been easy for any of us. But I will say that I think our goal in our house was to adjust and adapt and make do in a bad situation. Even though, for me personally, I actually love being home. I love working from home. I'm coming from a 3 hour commute. Now my commute is coming from my bedroom, logging onto a laptop and doing work. And I get to be more hands-on, like as far as my nephew with school and the teachers, and seeing his behavioral issues up front and learning how to deal with them, and working with his teachers and learning from his teachers and how to communicate and help. For example, um, he gets regular counseling at school, virtually, of course. And his counselor has been talking to us about the 5 love languages and finding his strength and affirmations and things like that. So it's like, even though this is bad and there are a lot of things that lack, but I think as a community, I know my experience as a community, when we come together, even though we can't touch and all that stuff, but this virtual space and place right here is like gold, because just think about it, 10 years ago, this would not be a thing, and we would really be on an island. Because I know before the pandemic, my husband and I, and taking care of my nephew, we felt like we were literally on an island by ourselves. We didn't know how to communicate. We didn't know how to handle. We didn't have the social support we needed. But in the virtual community, it kind of opened up for us. And we were able to talk to people as far as Pennsylvania, New York, California, Arizona, who had a similar child. And we were like, we are not crazy. We are not alone. So it's just I think for me, it was making the best of a bad situation and using the resources that we have. Yeah. Okay.
That's a pretty interesting perspective. I did mention at the onset that we are going to do a part 2 of this. We want to talk to some of the students. We want to talk to some of the parents to see what their perspective is. But one of the things that's been a great, and we are live on Facebook again. So I do apologize to you all for any technical issues. And I promise you, as the conversation series goes forward, I will learn and I will adapt. That is the one thing I am learning right here tonight. We are so resilient. And as a people, as a human race, it's why we're still here. We're not extinct because we adapt to survive. And I want to talk a little bit more about um, that, but I want to hear from Lori. Lori works in the academic setting, but she is a mental health professional of many years and has always been so kind because I call her and I'm like, Lori, I need your help. And it's not just professionally, it's personally when I call her and I say, I don't think I'm doing okay. And, I often get a text or, how are you doing? And she does this work like I believe all of you do because it's your calling. And Lori, how are you doing and what are you seeing? What are the challenges you see, especially on the collegiate level?
So I sit in a little bit of a different place than most of the folks tonight. And I first want to just start by acknowledging my appreciation for all of you. The level of adaptation, yes, as human beings, we are all, adaptation is sort of cooked in, right? It's baked in. But this has been an extra, we all have plenty to adapt to from day to day and moment to moment in non-pandemic life. Yeah. And while the pandemic has put some kind of a sense of suspended animation because of all the restrictions and things that we can't access and can't do for our collective safety right now, life keeps happening, doesn't it?
It really does.
So that's one of the things, that I've really watched as I start to reflect on a whole year of this. Like you all, I'm pretty much have that set of memories of where I was when the news happened, pack up your desk, don't come back, figuring out the technology, all that kind of stuff. And then all of the changes in information, and never mind politics and social justice issues and equality and equity issues and all of that stuff, And so from where I sit, I saw, disparities, just like you all said, shine a light on what people don't have and what people need, and all of the needs that we fulfill in whatever setting that we're in that we don't necessarily pay attention to until we realize that the kids are not, either our kids are not getting what they need, or the kids for whom we are responsible as educators need. And the weird thing is living that same experience along with them. So, I started off when the pandemic began, I was working in student counseling in a university setting. And a few months down the road, that was on a contract position. And so I also changed jobs.
Wow.
In May, still counseling, but working with employees, which means I work with parents who don't know what to do with their kids, sandwich generation folks who take care of kids and parents or spouses or partners with whatever. I got people who are going nuts because they're stuck at home and they miss being around people and leaving the house, and they don't know how to have a 24/7 relationship with the people under their roof.
Yeah.
And I talk to people who are stressed out because they have to be out there.
Yeah. That's scary. it's scary. How does a person adjust? Because when I initially talked to Phil, Phil was the first person other than Laura that I even talked about doing this with. And I talked to them, and what was evident is that I had not looked at the different levels of what can happen in education if something happens. I had not thought about children missing meals. That really impacted my whole heart because I'd not thought about. I mean, when we were younger, they used to have hot breakfast, hot lunches, the whole nine. But I actually thought they'd stop doing that years ago. So my immediate thought was, what do you mean they're getting two of their meals at school? And that was the first thing I thought of. And for me, and it's what continues to go forth in my head, is as much as we want to do things, we want to open up and do what we need to do, this is still very much a life and death situation. So every time we make a decision, we're not just deciding about our job we're deciding about, I'm going to hope that I don't lose my life today when I go to the grocery store. I'm going to hope that because I have to take my child with me when I leave the house because there's nobody else home, that I'm not harming myself and especially not my child. And then we have to think about who we're going to be around when we come back. And Phil, you had something you wanted to add? Unmute.
I know. And then the key is you got to hit unmute before someone tells you that you're muted. Like that's the other part of that, right? I just first of all, just what a phenomenal crew that I get to sit here with. Great, thank you. And several things have been read. Like I've got pages of stuff that the just comments from some of the things you guys have said. You're talking about that adaptation, and Lori talked about that adaptation. It kind of fit with all of you. Like Kanisha, what you were saying, it struck me when you talked about doing packets. And then so we started busting it and we're making packets for everybody, right? And then all of a sudden we get told no packets unless, we can't send anything. The mail, I mean, it was like the anthrax scare again. Like, oh my God, you can't send things through the mail. People touch the mail. And how many different people, and you're just going, wait a minute, where does this rabbit hole end? And so, we went from that. You talked about, and I particularly, Quenisha, your story really hit me. My son is a special education teacher out in California and does a lot of adaptive stuff. He also works with kids with autism, severe autism, and it's just the side stuff, the OT, the speech therapy, all those, like, those are things that you need to be hands-on. Now, for the next session that we talk about, I can talk about how some of the things that we've adapted to, but just like things you don't even think of. Right now, we're getting ready to open up our school into a hybrid scenario where we've probably got about 35 to 40% of our kids are coming back in the building. The other 65% are staying home. But we're figuring out lunch schedule. Like, how are we going to walk the kids through the lunch? How can they sit? We set up one set of tables that had three kids basically at a table, 6 feet apart. We were all good. We had it set and we could fit 172 kids in, and we could do this. And then the CDC tells us all the kids have to be facing the same direction. And we're like, well, that's not going to work because we had them at either ends of the table. So we had to go back. I mean, it's physically doing that stuff. You're just, it's like building a plane while you're flying it, right? And
Wow.
and the problem is you don't have a whole lot of aeronautical engineers on that flight that you're working on. So what I was saying, Kanisha, also was teaching, like, we're teaching the parents how to teach Spanish. We're teaching the parents how to teach algebra. My own three kids, my youngest is 22 and graduated last year, and we were having a family talk, and we were talking about how this is happening and the stresses at home and the things that we're learning about at home, like backgrounds, like what's in the kids' background, kids having issues with not wanting to let people see what's in their house because it's messy, or maybe they don't have stuff or whatever. I mean, just so many things that we never thought of. But I'm seeing that as a positive because we've ripped a cover off of something that for years we've looked past because our kids are okay. And now we know that there's a lot that we need to fix, and we're fixing it. And we're cutting the education down to what's essential. We're redoing how we assess in this world. That old school paper pencil. You got to remember, education, the way we generally do it, is the Horace Mann theory. It was all designed to teach kids to work in a factory. I do my part, I pass it on to you. I do my part, I pass it on to you. That's not the world today, right? Like, how many times were you told don't share answers, don't talk to your, we yelled at kids for collaborating, but what are we doing right now? Like, I mean, it's all about collaboration, right? And so we're looking at different ways of collaborating, having our students collaborating with the parents, working with the parents, teaching our parents how to work with their kids.
Wow.
We're repurposing people. Our bus drivers, they don't have anybody to drive. So they're actually driving food. We load them up in the morning and they drive their bus route, and families show up at the bus stop in the morning and the afternoon when they'd normally go with their kids and get meals. So we're repurposing things. So it's, I don't know, man. I hope we're writing this down. So when this happens again in 100 years, right? Because it's every 100 years, somebody I don't think we learned a lot in 1918, but hopefully we got it down better. But yeah, you guys are saying so many things that resonate. So many things.
I don't know. I'm over here trying to take notes, and because these are just things I did not even think about. Like you talked about the repurposing. People are learning new skills because they don't have a choice. Parents did not sign up to be educators. And everybody's doing something on the fly, making the lemons out of lemonade, adjusting so many different things. And gosh, okay, first of all, let me tell each of you, I'm going to ask you to come back because there's so much here we haven't unpacked. And I know that, you all have other obligations. I am grateful for your time. Lori, I know there was something else that you wanted to add. Please.
So, as I was listening to each of you talk about all of the adapting that you all have had to do as parents, as educators, as clergy, to make things work, to reach kids and parents and support them. I work in a big institution that, is historically one of those, it's going to be like this because we've always done it this way.
Wow.
Where there's a lot of high expectation of performance and excellence in the culture, in the corporate culture, in the workplace culture. And then the people who are attracted to work in that workplace, particularly the university side and the medical institution, right? It's always, you got to be the best just in order to survive. And it has to be perfect. And it has to be done this way. And oh my God, we don't have the time, the energy, the bandwidth, or the will to change things. And I'm here to tell you, the challenges that I saw just in the 4 weeks from the beginning of the shutdown that week in March to maybe the middle or end of April, all of a sudden, all these things I've been talking about in my university counseling job, that as a team, it's like, well, what if we did this? And what if we did that? And this is pre-pandemic, right? We should be able to serve our students. We have diverse students with diverse needs, even in this fancy schmancy university setting. No, we can't do it this way. No, we can't spend money on that technology. No, there's all kinds of restrictions about doing counseling online and by phone. And let me tell you, all the adaptation that got done and all the challenges to people's perfectionism in that institution, and all the conversations I have now with people who are being confronted by things that they didn't have to face because they could keep busy working.
Wow.
Mhm.
all the work that they can't do the way that they're used to, and they've been doing it that way forever, people are freaking out because I don't know how to gauge if I'm doing a good job anymore. I have a lot of teacher friends who have felt that way. I have a lot of parent friends who are like, I don't know what I'm doing with school, but how's my kid going to turn out? They've been away from their friends for 11 and a half months.
Wow.
So there are challenges in that like stressful, damaging PTSD kind of way that Andrea talked about. But they're also, don't let anybody tell you that X is impossible.
Mhm.
Because some big places, people have found the will and the creativity on all kinds of levels where we have not given ourselves permission to consider that.
Permission. I love that.
And we either haven't demanded it, or those of us who have been demanding for years haven't had anybody listen and pay attention and respond. And that is something that is coming out of this that I think is the turning of the tide.
That's amazing.
And while we have all been in this a long time now, and there's some wear and tear and it's not done yet, when things start to open back up, whatever that means, I heard Andrea, Phil, y'all are talking about things, reopening. You all are figuring out how to get kids back in the classroom, and it's in the news now all the time, right? That conversation is going to be hot for a while yet.
Mhm.
And there's going to be plenty of disparity. But in the 90s, I worked with AIDS patients during the time where there was only AZT, right? That was the first line treatment that just slowed down the progression of disease to death a little bit. Now, how many of you see on TV these ads about this one little pill that combines 3 medications, and now AIDS is a manageable disease? When I left that part of my work, that those 3 medications that were separate were just coming back, and patients that we thought we were going to be dead in 6 months are still alive now.
Wow.
And for them, they had to emerge from that plague and figure out, how do I reintegrate? How do I go back from being disabled to figuring out what I want to do with suddenly I have the rest of my life. So the reentry is going to be its own thing.
Mhm.
And so I'm here not just to laud you all, but to tell you what I see from my space that's at a different angle, a little farther back from the front line that you all are on, and just continue to encourage you to care for yourselves, acknowledge what you have done and what you continue to do, and to respond to that invitation that this time has given us to not assume it can only be done one way, and that if we feel like we're kind of something it as we're trying to figure out what that is, that's part of the process, and that perfectionism has very little to do with it. Like, you're doing fine. And if you think you're not, find somebody to talk to who will help you redefine for yourself what fine is and what enough is. Because all of our assumptions about that are being challenged right now. And while that's hard, it's probably not a bad thing.
I have a question for the panel. So we've talked about adapting, we talked about the challenges. So say we all go back, things are somewhat quote unquote normal. What are some things that you would adopt and keep from the COVID experience that you found to be helpful, that will help you in each of your work areas?
I can comment. I think so as many challenges as it has been, it's also been a learning experience. And so for the population that I work with, the cool thing about I'm sorry, my son is about to interrupt me. But the cool thing about the technology and being able to reach the families virtually is something that we definitely look forward to holding on to. because even with the students returning, and we may be working on different skills, in person, where a parent, because we have kids that come all over the DMV. So some of the parents, of course, aren't able to always be present or come to see a skill, watch their kid cook, or um, clean a bathtub. These different things now virtually can be presented to them where we can schedule. Okay, well, what's your time look like on Thursday at 7? Because this your kid is gonna prepare dinner, things that they don't believe sometimes that their children are capable of doing. The virtual piece now is a plus. We definitely have all talked and planned to keep, those things going. It's gonna be beneficial. That's one thing that stood out that I'm like, well, we didn't want to do virtual, but it's actually been a blessing in a storm,
Wow.
can have the families way more involved.
Yes.
If
And
I may, I just want to say my takeaway from all of this is that I am now reminded that you have to laugh and enjoy each other a little more. I plan on doing some of the things with my kids. I think I've danced to more BTS and K-pop songs than I ever imagined. I've learned to make jokes of myself, and I'm sitting here to talk about Phil's comment real quick. One of the outcomes of worrying about those students who may have lived in an environment that they didn't want their classmates to see, Zoom came up with virtual backgrounds, which I see Raina has and I have one. And I've been laughing because if I move around, my ponytail goes into the wind because it's a virtual background. So these are the things that we've had to overcome. I've been enjoying and laughing at myself as I don't know if you noticed, but I move a little bit. So, it keeps me awake, but just the ability to spend more time with the people that you love and laugh and remember that life is too short to get caught up. And I wish that I could tell parents that they're going to be okay. Some parents are really being destroyed because they feel they don't have the education or the time to give the children what they want. Our children are so resilient, and you do have to check up on them. But if you just laugh a little more and spend a little more time, playing those games and dancing to those K-pop dances and singing silly songs, you really have had the opportunity to get back to what life is all about. And that's something with my own children and with my children's friends who we've also been doing things over Zoom that I fully anticipate keeping after we go back to our new normal.
You hit that right on the nose. Being like the one blessing, the biggest blessing out of all of it for me was to be able to be home with my son. We work hours and I work 10 hours. Like I work kind of split, like from like 1 to 11, 1 to 10. So my son is gone to school, then he goes to aftercare, then he goes here and I pick him up, and we spend very little time at home. So to be able to cook dinner during a weeknight was amazing. Prepare his lunch. I'm tired of it, but it was a blessing to be able to put that time in and actually raise my child myself, so that's definitely been a blessing. And I can relate to the kids, Bobs. I am like all into TikTok now. The kids are sick of me with TikTok, but it has definitely been a blessing to be able to be, you realize you pay more attention to family, and realizing what's important and things that we took for granted, And I said from the moment that I realized that we lost so much, my takeaway is definitely never take it for granted. I never thought a day was going to come that I couldn't go to work, for all the times that, oh, I don't feel like it today. I don't want to go. These kids gonna drive me crazy. And then now you missing your babies, like, oh, I wonder how they're doing. And, just getting up for church. Who knew? Who knew? All the Sundays that I said, oh, I'm gonna sleep in. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to get back in the sanctuary, So it's definitely been an eye opener. And I think, that's a blessing. We were able to recognize these things. And if the Lord does give us the chance to get back to the normal things, we shouldn't take it for granted. That's definitely, I'm with you, Miss Sharita.
Totally agree.
I think I'll go next. The blessing part for me, when you guys was talking about the different videos supporting the family that I supported, the teachers always had Go Noodle videos. So just getting up and moving with the Go Noodle videos and just enjoying the kids that way. But I miss the kids from my classroom. So I'm so glad to be back with my kids in my classroom. But one of the thing that I wrote down is that there's the blessed part that I'm going to take away from this is that there's always another way to do something, right? There's always another way to do something, right?
Yeah.
I got Theo's approval on that statement, but there's always another way to do stuff. And it was amazing to me, even as I was thinking about that, those words, I wrote them down, is I always ask my kids even before the pandemic, they would come to me with a problem and I'd be like, okay, well, what's another way that we could have done that, right? So instead of telling them, don't do this, don't do that, stop doing this, stop doing that, because I'm a behavior specialist. So with the behaviors in my classroom, I always look past the behavior to look to the child, right? To see who that child is. And one of the things that came out of this for me is being able to not only just look at the behavior, but also listen to my children, right? Because now that everything that is going down, children are being told what to do, but not how to do it. So in them being told what to do, go sit over here, go do this, go log on, go do whatever, right? Because mommy is busy, daddy is busy. Praise God for the families that this has brought together, but it's also brought a split in the families as well. And so my heart goes out to those. And so for me, putting in my 2 cents is to encourage children, to equip children, and then to empower them to do something different, right? But also to express their feelings, because what I understand is that we as adults are big kids and the kids are little adults. And so if you actually sit and listen to a child, they will teach you some stuff. So I've learned a lot through this pandemic, through those twins and the 3-year-old. Oh my God, they taught me a lot. But over the course of 20 years of being in education, my children, I think every school year have taught me more than I taught them. Because I was willing to listen to them. I was willing to hear them. And like I said, see past the behaviors. And what I understand during this pandemic is that behaviors became even more so a problem for parents at home. And it's also becoming a problem in the school system because of the hybrid situation. The children are home with their parents, and with them being home with their parents, they go home Monday. We have A day and B day in Pennsylvania. So it's A day, they're Monday and Tuesday with A's, Monday and Tuesday with their teacher, Wednesday, everybody's off, Thursday and Friday, they're at home virtual learning. So the teachers have to reprogram the child when they go back into school on Monday and Tuesday. And then they're going through this cycle, and the child is like up at arms of, which way do I go? Like, how do I act here? How do I act here? And with that actually is presenting a whole nother issue with social emotional learning. The children are looking for and trying to find their tribe, their new tribe, because they had a tribe before the pandemic. And that's what we're trying to do as adults as well, truth be told. We're looking for our tribe. We're trying to find our tribe. We're trying to find where we fit in, and that's what they're doing as well. So I'm just amazed that there's always another way to do something. And so, Chris, thank you so much for this platform that you're building to have these conversations, because they're needed and they're necessary by each and every one of us. So thank you so much, because you are an innovator right now.
I don't know about that.
Wow.
Bless your heart. As I'm listening to you all, and I say, Raina, we can't run over time because I know they all have something to do, but I tell you, this is just important. And what I'm getting out of it is that I hope each of you know that there There are people watching we're never going to meet. We don't know who they are. We don't know their situation, but they are listening to each and every one of you, and you are letting them know a few things, that they're not failures. They're not alone. They can do this.
Yeah.
This will get different. I do not believe we're going back to anything. I think it's just going to be something different, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But we will get past this. We will get past this fear, and we will move into a place where we're all the more better for what's going on. Again, I am not in the academic arena. This is what you all do. I'm not a parent, but I have learned a great deal out of this. The technology to be able to sit here where I am, I'm away from my family. I'm hundreds of miles away from my family, and I'm looking right at my family. I have not seen my classmates in over 30 years. And I get to not just see them, but their experiences. Sharita and I have been friends for a decade, and we have met in person once. Once. This is essential to what we're doing. The same technology that a lot of us hated, because I said I would never use a cell phone, and I said it all. And now I have like 9 devices around me right now. But anything can be used for good, that can be used for evil. You can choose to use it the way you want. And you all are just remarkable. Like, I'm sitting here basking in the different aspects of what you all have figured out, where you all are, how you're being honest with yourselves about this is frightening, or this is challenging, this is exhausting. And I love that Lori said you have to take care of yourselves. I always talk about you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't. You have to figure out what you need to do to take that time for yourself and decompress and do whatever that is that works for you. And I'm so grateful that you all are willing to be here. And Phil, I hope you will talk to your son and tell him to come and join us. We want to talk.
I think it'd be an interesting conversation. I wanted to close with y'all. We're all about the same age. Y'all remember the 70s John Travolta, Boy in the Bubble? Remember that movie?
Yes.
Really terrible movie.
I heard about it in history.
He had the immunity deficiency and he couldn't be exposed. And they figured it out and they built him that bubble. And then he was like, but I want to be with my friends. I want to go to school. And he they wheeled in the video and they filmed the teacher so that he could see it at home and interact with them. And then they built him a suit and he made it in. Okay, that was 1974. I mean, we're here. We're delivering that instruction. No more those kids with school anxiety do they have to miss out on school. Those kids that have autoimmune deficiencies, they don't have to miss out on school. The kids that are laid up because they had a surgery, they don't have to miss school. Mm-hmm. So you've all said it one way or another. We're figuring out a way to get those kids, mm-hmm. as in addition to the rest. So no, thank you. Sam would be an interesting one to bring on in.
Yeah, I want to hear it. Let me do this.
We have a question. We have a question.
Oh, okay. Let's take it.
Sean wants to know, do you have a link or database to get in touch with these professionals?
I will. Actually, what is to happen is, so this is a thing. It was supposed to be a one-off when I did a talk on hope. And then things started to happen. And I started to make phone calls. And I started calling you guys. And you were like, yeah, we're doing this. And from it will come a second part to this. And I don't know that it won't be a third part. There's a reason we're doing this. There's something that needs to happen. We're going to have one about mental health. So this is now a series. And there will be a different focus. We're going to talk to first responders. We're going to talk to different people. We're going to talk to military people. We need to start talking about and dialoguing about, what are you feeling? What are you seeing? What do you want to see happen? And how to find your hope? Because if anything that you know about me or anyone that doesn't know me, hope is my thing because I know what it's like to lose it. And I know what it was like when I got it back. And if you don't have hope, what's the point? Why would you get up? Why do you care whether that kid has a meal or not? You just aren't in it. Hope is so important. So that will be like an overarching goal for this series. So the long answer to that short question is there will be a database, there will be resources. We will have a website that'll come up soon. The Facebook page is being created, and we will be able to link people to these resources and allow people to share resources with us. Because I don't know what the thing is. When I worked in foster care, it frustrated me that it was like resources were some sort of
Yes.
secret.
Yes.
Like you had to dive and call and dip to get resources
Yes.
for kids. And I was like, what is the big secret? We are
Mhm.
better together. We're stronger together.
Yes.
And if we would figure that out and get that in our heads and in our heart and in our spirit,
Yes.
man, we can do anything. And
Yes.
you are evident of the resiliency of people who are walking in their calling. And I'm like bursting right now, just individually and collectively. You all have blessed my whole life tonight. And I know that the people that are watching, I thank each of you who have taken time to
Oh.
watch, that will watch the recording. I promise you, you're going to take notes. You're going to get tons of stuff out of it. I have books. I have been typing stuff. It's just so much to take in because this has been so much to take in. When I heard you say 11 and a half months, I don't know who else, but that just made my stomach drop. Like, this has been a year, and it's not like we got any warning it was coming. So we've had to do some things, and we've talked about what the challenges are. And I will go in depth because one of the things I do want to have discussion about, and I do want to have you back, is how has this affected your home life? You all are educators. So our expectation of you is to take care of our kids, the staff and administrators take care of the school. What happened in your house while you were trying to figure out the safety of your house and how it's now running and take care of other people? That's the same with healthcare providers. How are we doing this? I'm afraid to go home. Will I take something home? There's so much to this. And even my own fears of I actually don't want to go outside. Like I'm fighting agoraphobia. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna get because not everybody is social distancing, not everyone's wearing a mask. And there are people that still think this isn't deadly and it's not gonna get them. I mean, we're almost at 500,000 people that have left us, and there are still people that think it won't happen to me. And, hopefully we'll get past that. But as we conclude, I want to ask each of you a question. And if you can give me just kind of a brief answer, if you can think of the one thing that either personally, professionally, or both was the best aha moment for you. Go on, Phil. We started with
Like the big aha was that we discovered enormous gaps that we would not have discovered. The cool part of it was we rallied to fix them.
That's fantastic. Juanisha, what was your aha moment?
Come back to me. I don't have it yet. I'm thinking.
Okay. Andrea?
My big aha was seeing it from the parents' point of view because I don't have children.
Right.
So seeing how the pandemic affected the family, looking at it from the educator side, I was it wasn't point blank and frank, I was judgmental. And it helped me see from the other side of the fence. It helped me see it from another perspective, and you can walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. So I got to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. And that was my aha moment and my wake up call that I needed to help instead of be a hindrance or talk about.
Sharita. Aha.
Actually, my aha was kind of like Andrea's because I remembered, was taught again that we have to use cognitive empathy when we're dealing with people, using a sense of introspection where instead of just seeing somebody and saying, oh, I see them hurt, we see that person, try to put ourselves in their shoes and try to figure out solutions to make things better, which is kind of what you're doing here, Chris. We really need to not only just say, I get it, I feel you, I see what you're saying. We need to try and reach out to people and help them where they are, and collectively we can all become better. And so that was my aha moment.
Raina?
My aha. Community, relying on community and not being afraid to be transparent.
Wow.
Because when you're you send your child to school, they're supposed to do school. You have your teacher parent meetings, which I have many, even when we were in the building and now virtually. But when you're seeking for help and you're seeking for information, you can't get help if you say nothing. So in my case, when you have a kid with a special condition, and I was already like a fish out of water before pandemic, but I think since everyone was virtually, so they were more reachable. So my take from this is not stay virtual, but keep that aspect, because like parent teacher meetings, I get to have an impromptu parent teacher meeting when the camera goes off and the covers go over the head and the teacher's like, I can't get through to X, Y, and Z, texting me. I can walk to the living room and say, okay, what's wrong with you? So it's like being transparent, being open. If you don't have resources, ask for resources. And the one thing I would say about this new school community we're a part of, they are very supportive, they're non-judgmental, and they're willing to go above and beyond to help. And I think as educators, as for a parent, that's like $1 million to me, because sometimes you feel like you're alone and you're dealing with rebellion, you're dealing with defiance, and to have an educator to come alongside with me and partner with me, and we can each tag team and be a core team for the same goal, to get him the education he needs, to get him to see his future needs his participation. We may not have some things, but we can make up for those things we don't have in other areas. And it kind of also strengthens the areas in where he lacks. So I would say being creative, being innovative, being transparent, those are my aha moments.
Wow. Lori is going to close us out. But is there a question you wish I'd asked you? Anybody? Anyone? Quanisha, you got an aha for me yet?
I just think I was thinking and thinking of so many different things, but I think for me on a personal level, it was really just discovering that, like, you got this. Like, this is, I think, not really in a sense of not knowing that, like, I love my career, I love what I do, but I think in the moment of, like, in the midst of all of this emergency, do this, do that, I think I really just discovered that I was built for this. It didn't defeat me, and as many nights as I cried to my mom, fussing about the job when it first happened, trying to amend all these IEPs, and it was crazy, but I realized that this is for me. Like I got it. So that's kind of my moment. I was kind of reflecting a little bit, but yeah, that's my moment.
That's huge. That's I'm in my aha moment. Um I Sharita and I did a radio show together for 2 years, and it was amazing and wonderful. And I said, maybe I'll do a podcast, but I want to talk about music. I want to talk about art. I want to talk about songwriting. I want to talk. And God was like, yeah, I got something for you to do. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get to it. But I really want to talk about this music thing. And he was like, okay, I need you to do something. And I'm like, but I don't know how to do that. And that's not actually true. This is what I studied in high school. This is what I said I wanted to be. And who knew I'd be 50 plus, well, 50 and change doing that. But my aha moment is, huh, A, this isn't all about you. And B, if you want to talk about what should be happening, you have to do your part from where you are. And this is my part. This is my part. This is how I want to affect change. I want to bring the people in that know, that experience, that are willing to be transparent and to talk and to take time to dialogue and just have a conversation, because there's something to happen from there. I can't thank you all enough. You all have blessed me. You are gracious. I will continue to call you. I have several different phone numbers and email addresses, so you can't track them and block them. So, I will be in touch. I say this to you, please be safe. I know some people are vaccinated, some are not. Some people are still deciding whether they want to do that. People are still questioning how we're going to go back to school if everybody's not being vaccinated. There are so many questions, which is why this can't be the only time we do this. Because Raina and I had a production meeting, and we were talking about, well, how often are we going to do this? And I literally am learning this on the fly. I'm in my aha moment. And I said, the world's changing too fast for us to wait a month. We can, by the time we finish this, we're going to go watch the news and go, when did that happen? It's moving that fast. And we have to address it and keep up with it. We can't chase it anymore. We can't chase things like this. Chasing it is why we're here. We weren't prepared. We were not proactive. We're being reactive. And that's not what we can do. And especially when it comes to our children, because they're our future. We can't be reactive. We have to be proactive. And we have to be everything that you all are. You make me proud. You make me happy. You humble me. And that is why I heart educators. I always have. And that's why I still bug my teachers from school. I think we all still kind of hang on to them. They will never get rid of us. I hope they're watching. They will never get rid of us, because what you all do, everything flows from education. Every doctor had to be taught. Every nurse had to be taught. Every president, every king, everybody started with a teacher. So thank you all. Thank you all who are watching. Thank you all who will watch. Thank you all who are participating. And Lori, give us our words of wisdom for the evening.
So I'm going to actually build on something that Quenisha just said, which is discovering that you were made for this moment. So my aha really comes from what you just said, because what I have learned and continue to learn, because this is an ongoing thing. It's not like you get there and you know a thing and you're done ever. Is that whatever we have been through up until this point has prepared us in some way for where we are right now. And everything that we are learning and listening and paying attention to and flailing our way through, because we don't know, there's always some portion of, we don't know what we're doing. We're just doing the best we can to take care of each other. is preparing us for whatever is coming next, whether that's tomorrow or next week or 10 years from now.
Yeah.
So I want to just witness and acknowledge and appreciate where everybody is in this journey. You know, everybody has something to bring to the table, even if you feel like you don't know what the heck you're doing. And when you do feel like you are having those moments of, oh man, let's get the bus drivers to get the food from the cafeteria so the cafeteria workers can keep working. Let's have these bus drivers drive their bus routes so that these kids and their families can get the food that they need. You know, oh, we can figure out how to get this technology to these kids who we've always thought that being on site is the only way to teach. Let's take forward this discovery that kids who are bullied, kids who are left out, kids who are non-neurotypical, who don't thrive either in the social emotional setting of school that everybody else seems to, like, let's see how we can teach differently, how we can listen differently, how we can connect differently. There's always another way, like Andrea said. And I'm going to walk away. This is almost getting towards bedtime here. I don't know how I'm going to wind down and go to sleep tonight. So, you know, thank you for the energy that you all bring here. And I know that there are probably many more recipients than all of our fingers and toes can count of the light that you all carry in the world. Guard it and take care of yourselves. Indulge yourselves in joy. That's as important as it ever was. Right now, make yourselves available to the joy that and the help and support and the belief that you give out to other people. Make sure you take that in too. And if you're ever having trouble with that, Chris will tell you where to find me.
Indeed. Indeed. Thank you so much. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Raina, for being kidnapped willingly. Thank you, Sharita. You are always a huge support. And you too, Andrea. And thank you, Quanisha. You make me so proud. And I love watching you develop into the woman that you are and the mom that you are and just the way that you bless other people. So thank you, Lori, for always having such a sweet spirit and everything else that goes with it. Thank you for being the well to sometimes that we come to be replenished. Thank you all. And the one thing I get out of tonight is, yeah, we can do this. We absolutely can do this. Let's just remember to do it for each other, whether that's being safe, whether it's just helping and figuring out in the way that you can. Let's just do this for each other and for ourselves. So, with that, I will say thank you. I will say good night. And I invite you to join me again when we have a conversation. Good night, everyone. I love you all. No strings attached. Good night.